Welcome into Trucker Talk Radio. It is Thursday, February 20th. I'm John, and you're on here with Justin. Justin, we're averaging about 10 listeners a day. 10 listeners a day for Trucker Talk Radio, so we're getting somewhere. We got
Hey,
somebody listen to us. At least anything's better than zero, right?
that's right. I appreciate all you 10 that come out every day and listen to us then.
Absolutely. So let's get it up to 11. Let's
That's
at
it.
least get one more. Take it baby steps, right?
That's
So
right.
we were just chatting, and we're talking about how security and airports are changing. I've been in airports, and I don't hear those those orange alerts anymore. And Justin just told me he was on the terror watch list at one point. So tell me what's going on with that.
All right. So, back in my mid 20s, I had a business in China. So I flew to China back and forth quite often for about a year. Probably would have lived there if I would have had the right opportunity because I did try to live there one time during that. But I was not as I look now, bald headed and all that. I had hair down to past my shoulders. I had a full old scruffy beard. I just was a scruffy looking guy. It's just how I was.
Yeah.
I looked so rough and I flew so much and I always carried more than one piece of luggage because I
Okay.
always had stuff back. So I always had two or three pieces of luggage. So, and they would check it. So I guess what happened was I was flying so much and I was flying, out of the country and overseas to, the middle, not to the Middle East, but to, Asia. And I flew into Korea several times.
Yeah.
And uh, every time I would have to go through two or three extra scans, I'd always get pulled to the side at the last minute and basically have to do basically that strip down to my underwear almost. Sometimes
So
they
did you
would,
get pulled into a closet? Did you, or
yeah.
did you get?
Yes,
Yeah.
every time at the gate, I'd go through two extra screens on the way to the gate. But when I got to the gate, by golly, I'd get pulled to the side, even if it was a domestic flight, because I flew a lot back in, even going to football games and stuff down at Florida at Gainesville. I'd
Yeah.
get pulled every time right at the gate and have to be searched. And they didn't want to search my bags. And then no matter where I got to at the end, I'd have they'd open your luggage and then they'd put a note in there saying they searched it. And by golly, they searched my stuff every single time. It was so aggravating. And of course, back then I had a pretty good temper, so I would raise hell, and that probably didn't help the
That
situation
doesn't help your cause. Yeah.
at that point. You get it done, because luckily, most of those flights to Asia was like 12 to 15 hours, but you still had one or two more flights, and
Mhm.
you'd get done every time you come off the plane. And I'm like, well, what in the world could I have done on a 15-hour flight plane to get back onto another plane? I mean, it's not like I got something extra I can put on now, but it sincerely got so aggravating that it made me where I didn't even want to fly. And I laugh now because of course, it's not that big of a deal, but like we were talking about before we came on air, the airport now, I mean, Lord, if you pay that TSA thing to
Yeah,
bypass,
the TSA pre-check. I need to do that because speaking of, I mean, this is a little bit too much information, but every time I go through security now, I get stopped, and it's like right in my private area, right in my crotch area. There's a red square showing up on the screen, and every time they got to go and rug me down, and I'm like, what in the hell?
it may
Every single time, and I'm like, I mean, it just must be oversized, so they just don't know what to do.
that's right. You get talked to, you're known throughout the airport. They probably got a picture of you, and
Yeah,
every
I mean, my God, I mean, it's every time. I could
yeah,
be wearing sweats, jeans, it doesn't matter, and I'm like, and they're like, "Sir, would you like to go in the back room?" I'm like, "No, I'm used to it now. I mean, you do it, every time I fly, and I fly up quite a bit, but not overseas, not overseas. But I'm seeing, I just I'm getting concerned because I think we're leaving ourselves vulnerable for
oh yeah,
for some stuff, and
yeah, we're not far back. I mean, we were at the airport, me and my daughter. I guess it was a couple months, well, 4 or 5 months ago, And we were in line, and they were scanning our tickets at the, right there at the check-in, or not the check-in, but the belt where you put all your stuff out. And before they'd even get to us, they had, I don't know, 20 or 30 people that come through with that pre-pass thing, and they didn't even look or speak to them. They just let them scan a little badge and moved them right on through, which slowed our line down. I'm thinking anybody could get that badge. They don't ask for your ID to compare it to the badge, or they didn't at this airport. And I'm thinking, man, it ain't. There's nothing for these guys to come up with a badge. I mean, Lord, they counterfeit driver's license and
Yeah, no, I mean that reminds me. I mean my wife and I, we were flying with the kids, and we were in Cincinnati, flying back to Tampa, and we're waiting in line at the baggage claim, and these Middle Easterners are in line, and they're like going back and forth with the ticket agent, and there's a group of them, and they're like split up in line,
Mhm.
and they're going back and forth with each other. They're coming back talking about a specific bag, and the ticket agent is like, for whatever reason, that bag couldn't go through, and they're making a big fuss about this, and there's like, it's like four Middle Easterners, four,
Mm.
I don't know if they were Pakistanis, I don't know if they were Afghan, or I
Right.
don't know what they were, but they were concerning. And not to be racist or anything like that, but it
No.
was concerning,
Right.
and they just looked suspicious. I mean, it could have been four white guys, and I would have thought it was suspicious. I mean, they were just
Especially nowadays.
they were acting kind of funny, and they were really adamant about this bag getting on the plane. So, um, we go through security, and I didn't even know they were going to be on my flight. We go through security. I don't see them at all anywhere, and I'm like, I'm someone who has to look at the door. I don't know what it is. I don't like people coming in behind me. I always want to be ready for action,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So I am totally suspicious. I'm like, something's going on here. I'm like, they better not be getting on my plane. And I don't see them. So I kind of forget about it a little bit. We have about an hour before our flight, and then we're getting in line, and all of a sudden they come up, and they're getting on the plane. I'm like, oh man, they're on our flight, and we're sitting like kind of catty corner from two of them,
Mm.
and the airdrop feature on the iPhone, anyone can send a photo to anyone as long as that airdrop pulls up.
Oh, that's correct.
So my wife looks at her phone, she gets an alert, looks at her phone, and she says, "Look at this." And it's a picture of the aisle with her back and her bag, and it says, "Have a nice flight, smiley face." And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What is this? And then so I call the attendant. I immediately freak out. The attendant is like, there's nothing I can do. They haven't done anything wrong. They sent a picture. They could have sent it to the wrong one. We can't even go up and question them because they're nervous. They could be, they could be
Right.
sued, whatever. They're nervous of a racist remark or something like that. So, yeah. So, but I mean, who sends that? So,
Right.
um, so that I'm like, well, you need to move us. You need to move us from this area because my wife feels threatened. I feel threatened, and I'm going to go back and say something to them if I'm not moved. So they moved us to the front of the plane, and then I guess they kept an eye on them. They were like, we'll alert the pilot, and we'll just keep an eye on them. But then, so nothing happened. Obviously, nothing happened. We get off the plane, and they must have known we said something. I'm sure they did. So we're down in baggage claim. They had no check bags that they picked up. It was just the most bizarre thing. No check bags. And I said, like I
Yeah.
said, I had seen them check bags when we were in Cincinnati. They
Oh,
walked past the check bag area for almost, they weren't arm in arm, but they're side by side by side by side, just walking straight towards the door. And they just kind of like, I mean, it was just like they were soldiers. It was like they were just on a mission. It was the most eerie thing I've ever been a part of.
oh, I bet. Yeah, I can imagine. a similar story to that. Actually, right after 9/11, I was actually supposed to fly the weekend of 9/11, the weekend of for a football game, and of course, DC came to the game, so we didn't go. So a week later, we flew to the next game. Basically, the first time that we really could fly at that point. And I'll never forget it. We were actually flying home from Florida, and these four, I can't even remember because that's been so long. I don't remember exactly their ethnicity, but I remember it at that time because they ended up telling us they were up on the plane just talking and not sitting down. And of course, if you remember, right after 9/11, you were not allowed to get up to do anything. I mean, they didn't even want you to get up to use the restroom. You
Yeah.
seated and buckled at all times. Well, about
Right.
halfway flight, four of these guys were just up chit chatting. Of course, they wasn't speaking English, so we had no clue what. Of course, there was about 20 guys that we was all kind of sitting in a couple rows together. And of course, we all got to talking, and like, oh no, this is the Pennsylvania plane all over. We had a game plan. And I remember one of the guys that was sitting near us overheard us, and I guess he understood. I think they were Guatemalans, I believe is what they were, and
Mm-hmm.
he had spoke some type of Spanish that he understood some of their translation. So he ended up asking them what was going on, and come to find out, they were teachers at a college outside of Memphis, and they did not even realize that what they were doing was making everybody nervous. But the flight attendants had already called in to the tower. I mean, it got us all nervous because it hadn't even been 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
still, like you, I'm not so much of a people watcher. Like I still kind of keep my guard down, like at the malls and stuff, because but the plane stuff in the airports, because it's a big deal if they do something at one of those locations. It's national news. I mean, yes, the mall shootings are bad national news as well, but I'm very vigilant on keeping up with. It don't matter who you are, what color, man, woman, green, purple, brown, black. I don't care. I'm just like you. I am watching everybody, watching where bags are placed. If somebody picks the same bag back up, just because I've traveled so much overseas that you just never know, and we're, as Americans, unfortunately, are just a huge target to everything.
We are a huge star. I mean, and I'm already nervous flying anyway. And now with these accidents now, I
Oh yeah.
mean, my God, every time there's turbulence, I'm gripping the seat like as hard as I can. I'm a little bit more comfortable than I used to be, even a little rocked. Used to I'd be like looking over at my wife or somebody. I'm usually looking at the flight attendants just to see if they're freaking out. If they're
Yeah,
calm and collected,
it's no big deal.
then I okay. And it's kind of like my buddy who's a pilot is like, it's like a bumpy road. When was the last time you heard of a plane going down due to turbulence? You just don't hear it. I mean, you may hear of an emergency landing because
Hmm.
something gets shook, or they have some engine problems. Even they have some engine problems. I mean, we were on a cruise with this. He was a former fighter pilot, and he flew commercial for one of the big airlines, and he's like, I hope there is something that goes a little bit wrong so I can maneuver and pay attention, because these planes fly themselves. He's
Right.
like, it's really just, it's boring. He's like, I really don't have to do anything. I said, well, I want it to be boring. I want it to be as boring as possible for you.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
but man, with this plane flipping over, thank God everyone was okay
That was
in
crazy.
Canada. But man alive, that I know I've come down on a landing where it's been so hard, and you feel like one of the wings is lifted up,
Hmm.
and then and then the pilot, he or she brings it down slowly, and you end up being fine. But it sounds like that wing just, when he came down hard, the right wing just like clipped the ground, and then it just came off.
Off, yeah, it's scary. I mean, be honest, I've seen quite a few crashes in what, the last 6 weeks. I mean,
Yeah, it's crazy.
and then you had that one. I can't remember where it was. Where I still don't know exactly what happened. Where it crashed into the wall, the barrier wall. I
Oh,
mean,
that was in Naples.
okay, I still don't know. I still don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, that was we passed by there. my brother lives in Naples, and we drive down there, and you can see the marks on the wall. It's
Mm.
crazy. It was, I mean, just right on 75, and just on the southbound side of the freeway, and you can see the marks on the wall where the plane just skidded right across it.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know if it was engine failure or whatever. My wife swears that pilot or that uh private flights are like, they're like, jinxed or whatever you want to call it. She refuses. She's like, if we ever make it big, I'm never flying private. Never gonna do it.
Just pay up for the
My
first class.
my dad worked for an oil company, and I flew. I mean, it was just their planes that they had. So whenever we he'd go on a business trip, and we had family in New York. We'd fly on that, on a private plane, and we'd pull right up to the tarmac, or right up to the plane, and get on. And um, yeah, I think it's the best way, if you can do it, if you can afford it. I mean, it wasn't our plane; it was the oil company's
Okay.
plane. But
Well, there's a lot
um,
of plane services like that now, that you can basically rent it for the day or for the,
my great uncle, he owned a printing company in Manhattan, and he called me. He knew I was in transportation,
hmm
and he suggested to me right before he died. This was probably 2013, 2014. He suggested to me, he's like, you're a broker. At the time, I was brokering some freight. He's like, why don't you broker private planes? Because he flew private occasionally, and I had no idea what he was even talking about. And then I see like net jets come out, and
right.
some of these other ones, and that's exactly what he was talking about. I could have done that. He was trying to get me to set it up, and I had no means, or I had
Right.
no idea about that. That side of that industry. I had no idea who to even start with calling, but that's what he was trying to suggest. Those there's
Yeah.
brokers around here. They just they do really well for themselves. Just broker planes,
Yep.
and you just hop on. Some owner of a plane gets off, and you hop on, and I'm sure you pay a handsome fee for it.
Right. Well, and it's good too for the people that own the planes because they don't fly them enough. That way, they can maybe make enough to even make the payment.
Yeah,
Part
that
of the
fuel is outrageous.
yes, yeah, that would be what my big concern is how much that cost you every trip.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm getting ready for this hockey game tonight. I can't wait. I know you're not a hockey fan, but
Now, I love
I am.
hockey in person. Now, that might be one of the best sports to watch in person. It's always entertaining.
It is actually, it is the best sport to watch in person. And then NHL playoff hockey is also one of the best. I mean, but that's like any playoff sport. I mean, the NBA. I don't watch the NBA, but I will for the playoffs.
Right. It,
Baseball, same thing. I won't touch it during the regular season, but for the playoffs, I'll watch it. But so USA versus Canada plays tonight at 8 o'clock on ESPN, and if you can watch it, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So I don't know if you know, they played in Canada last week, and the Canadians booed the national anthem.
really.
And then so at the start of it, right as soon as the puck dropped, there
Mhm.
were three fights. Three fights. They went off. The Kachuk brothers, I think that's how one of them plays for the Florida Panthers.
Mhm.
Um, and the other one plays for Ottawa Senators, I believe. I could be wrong about that, Brady. But anyway, it was one after the other, and they just started fighting. And you don't boo our national anthem, so
No,
it's going to be interesting to see if we boo Canada's national anthem. They're going to be the 51st state anyway, so you need to get them comfortable. They need to start getting comfortable with our
right.
national anthem for sure.
Somebody did say we need to break them into two states. They need to be 52 because I think half the country is very liberal, and so
Yeah,
kind of divided into part of the region. So that that way the one side would never get control and have it because I would assume it'd be a huge electoral vote that they would get, of course. So,
yeah.
but
How
yeah,
many provinces is Canada?
that's a good question. I don't think I. I'm not up on my. I can find out though.
Yeah, can't 10 provinces. So I
Yep.
mean, would you have 10 states? I mean,
Well, they acted like they was just going to do one, but I want to say they were wanting to. I heard somebody say I was trying to see which province is which is split it right down Manitoba and I ain't even gonna try to pronounce that other one and just split it right there where it starts with an I anyway. I don't even know, but
or for
put it just
uh,
almost
yeah,
right
I'm
down.
not sure.
But I think most everybody lives in like two cities anyway because it's so cold and tundra.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've heard
yeah.
the area was.
I mean, I don't know how serious the administration is on this. I heard today um they were doing a press conference, and she got the press secretary got on there and said Canada got mentioned, and she was like, and the 51st state, Canada. So I mean, they're saying it. I don't know what that would entail and how that they would go about doing that, convincing Canada
Mm-hmm.
to become a state. I don't know how realistic that is.
Now, the only way that, from what I've read and heard, I think one way that they could really force their hand, it seems like it's a lot to do with the protection that we give them military wise, because undoubtedly they must not have that large of a military. And
Yeah,
I know that we commit a lot to that, so I don't know if they'd use that to try to like, well, hey, then you take care of yourself, which I wouldn't see us doing that because I mean we don't want nobody attacking Canada because that's basically us anyway.
yeah.
There's no borders, just a 10-foot cut row in between forests, and that's the line in between us and Canada. Might be 20 feet, but
Yeah,
it's
and I think some like illegals are getting through on that northeast side of Canada, like near
I can believe it.
like where they're coming through the snow, like through the backwoods. I saw some video of that a couple of years ago.
Believe it. Now
Um,
I'll tell you one thing: if we could make it to 51st state, that would help trucking so much. I don't know how much you've ever
we get a lot of resources from Canada, right?
right. We do, but I'm just talking about in general us sending stuff over there.
Yeah.
Uh, Canada's.
Well, yeah, because when Canadian drivers, when they take a load now from Canada into the United States, they have to take a load back
Mm-hmm.
before they can get another load in the United. It's not they can't run around the United States. They can take a load in, although they can take a load to Florida, California,
Yep.
Texas, but they have to go back to Canada. They can't take a load from one state to the other. So sometimes they get stuck here for a while, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the same for U.S. carriers as well, right? They can go into Canada, but
Yep.
they've got to come right back out. They can't take loads within the country.
Yep. And two, when you're trying to take stuff across the border, their agricultural division is it's ridiculous. Sometimes you can have loads sitting at the border for a week
Oh
waiting.
yeah, well they sit in bond, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
used.
they can sit there forever. I mean, I've experienced that. I've dispatched guys up to Canada. I've
Yeah.
dispatched a truck up to Newfoundland. I used to have a driver. She'll hopefully be on the show. She's interesting. Her name's Casey, but she used to go up to Nova Scotia,
Wow.
or Newfoundland, not Nova Scotia, Newfoundland,
Wow.
and get on the boat to go across. But sometimes she'd get stuck. I mean, and if you don't make that ferry in Newfoundland, if you miss it, it comes across like once every 3 or 4 days. And one time she had an important load and she missed it, and then the broker wants to fine you. It's not easy.
I can imagine. Yeah. I shipped a load of exotic lumber over to Habitat for Humanity in Ontario many years ago, and it was such an ordeal. My load sat at the border for like a week, and they had to pay so much money. And I had all the documents, which they were already documented lumber because it come from Africa, so we had to have that before it ever got to the states. And I mean, and all it was a little old $50 permits they wanted, but it took
Hmm.
forever. And of course, everybody was making money while it sat there, while the trucking company that was taking the load was, just sitting there not getting much of anything. And it was you couldn't get anything across that border. It was just amazing how strict they were, which I get it. With anything you keeping, trying to keep certain things out like bugs or whatever, because that was a big issue with the exotic lumbers. But of course, the wood is kill dried, so there's no bugs per se in it. They'd already be dead. But so that would probably help that anyway. It's just not having to stop at the border and have to get paperwork in line, or the right paperwork. And because you can
Yeah.
get paperwork, but you get the wrong person on the wrong day. They want this piece of paper that probably halfway don't even exist, just to take their frustrations out on somebody else.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, and these regulations that gets me into these. You had shared something with me earlier about I guess Trump put a hold on all these FMCSA regulations. He's put a hold on it, and one of them was like broker transparency. At first, I thought it was brokers having to share um, like what's their rates are
Hmm.
with carriers, but that's not the case. It's brokers having to share like any fees that they're trying to cut out broker I guess broker gouging.
Yeah,
Is that, you think that's the right
probably. That's
terminology for that? They're trying to. I don't necessarily agree with a carrier. I think it should be a free market. If that truck is going to do a load and they're going to do a load for that carrier or for that broker, and there's an agreed to rate, I don't know why they would have any access to anything further than that. And they're saying they're going to get access to like broker, what is it? can't I can't remember what. I had it pulled up. Let me see if I can.
yeah. It's. I mean, there needs to be something probably done to regulate just the bad brokers out there. That the main thing is the ones that get the loads out, but they don't end up paying, or they don't pay, or they're double brokering, and those things
Yeah, now double brokering, like seeing where they get their loads from. If the load didn't come from that particular, if that didn't come from one of their direct customers, and it came from, and I could understand if there was some suspicion there, but even still, that's not something that a broker should necessarily have to hand off to that carrier. I would think that would be something that would be discovered in court or be discovered in some kind of like litigation.
Yeah, because you don't want to give up your source of your freight. I mean, it's already bad enough. I know from brokering what little bit I ever have. You got a lot of the customer's information on the paperwork. Well, guess what happens? That truck driver gets that information, and I don't blame him because it's free enterprise. They start soliciting and calling that customer trying to get freight from them.
Yeah,
So
this is on CDL Life. It says the first part of the proposed amendment is to require property brokers to keep their records in electronic format, basically so they can share them with carriers upon request,
mm,
who are asking for transparency, requesting transparency. Um, but I mean, those records, I mean, that's not
no,
what's included in those records. It's kind of vague.
might be like that on purpose, so it just sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, you don't brokers shouldn't have to share their pricing structure or anything like that.
you know,
That's
truck drivers get mad all the time saying that brokers, they're, cutting their throats and they're making all the money. Well, it's a free enterprise. So
it
you
is.
charge whatever you want. And now I would think there should be maybe some kind of regulation in the fact that you can't post loads for 85 cents a mile. And
Yeah, well, and I don't even necessarily have a problem with that. Here's what I've got a problem with on the carrier side is, carriers get loads from brokers, and then brokers try and find every excuse under the sun to not pay
yep,
that invoice. That's what I've got a problem with. They know the load's been delivered. They've likely been paid from their customer, and they're asking for a piece of paperwork. They're asking for page 7 of 8 from the BOL, and they're saying we're not paying it until you get it. Yet they've submitted all the paperwork and invoice to their customer, and they've already gotten paid.
yep,
That's what I've got the biggest problem with. Other than that, I don't really see a reason for a carrier to get involved in any kind of the broker's records. Like you said, it's a free enterprise. But however, if the carrier's having problems collecting payment, something needs to be done. Brokers, and that may be some of what this is pertaining to. Like brokers especially the bigger ones have these attorneys that put hidden language in their contracts, and
yep,
they're saying we don't have to pay you if you don't do this, 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 and this, and you fall short of one of those items, they don't have to pay you,
that's right.
which is wrong, especially if
They're getting paid.
they've been paid themselves.
Yeah, if they've got enough paperwork to receive the money, then they should be able to pay out their portion. I mean, it's so crazy that, and I've noticed this over the last couple of years. So I always preach to owner operators before you leave that yard on your delivery, even if you can before you get out of before you pull the truck up to close the doors, stop, take 3 minutes, get your paperwork signed, take pictures of it, either send it into your dispatcher or transflow it into your company. Right then. Don't wait till you stop that night. Take 3 or 4 minutes, get it done, because that's how you get paid. But what's aggravating, and there's a couple of them that I know for a fact that will not take this, and it's the most aggravating thing of what you're talking about. Every driver pretty much has a clipboard. So you put your paperwork in your clipboard. That way you can always get good signatures. It doesn't fly away. It doesn't, fall off from the seat and go under the seat. It's still on the clipboard, right? So what do? You hold the clipboard and you take a picture with your cell phone. To me, sounds like a great plan. Just make sure you don't cover up anything with the clip part, right? Easy said. They will now not pay drivers if their thumb or the clipboard clip is in the picture. And I mean,
Yeah,
okay,
and that's something I used to even argue with. Well, and I know why the carriers demanded of the drivers. I used to tell drivers, get all four corners of
mm-hmm,
that paperwork in the picture. You
yep,
show a thumb, you show a steering wheel, you show anything like that. Like you're saying, brokers will come up with any excuse under the sun to not pay it. To
yep,
not pay it. There needs to be, and maybe through Ready App, which you and I are both working on, maybe we can create it kind of like a universal, I'm giving my my idea away, but we've got the platform to do it where drivers could simply
that's
scan
true.
in directly from and submit it to their carrier, and it's a universal form, you know
And if
something that every shipper has, every carrier has. It's a universal form. You enter in, the information, and do you have your Ready App form with you?
yeah, you could do it
And
like a cover sheet, Ready App cover sheet for the load.
yeah, and it's real easy, real simple,
Yep.
um,
No,
and it's automatic.
yeah, because it's a big situation in which a lot of drivers don't think about. They get in a hurry, they do it late at night, and I see it happen all the time. So everybody typically gets paid on Friday, so you get your settlement on Thursday. Thursday's a terrible day. You getting 100 calls wanting to know why. Why is my settlement short? Why ain't
Yeah,
this?
but let's be honest here. I mean, everybody is trying to. I shouldn't say everybody, but most people in this industry are trying to find any excuse they can not to pay the driver.
Yep.
Now, the driver is the first. Any driver who says they're not, they're not the first one to get paid, I don't want to hear that argument at all, because you're the first one to get paid before anybody.
Exactly.
Before the customer pays that broker, or the customer pays your carrier who you're running for, you are getting paid. You're getting
Yep.
paid. You're getting prepaid on that load. So it is your responsibility to turn in all the paperwork as they request it. And,
Right. Load.
but there is the other side of it where the carrier, especially when they're dealing with a direct customer, they're just as guilty as the broker. They're trying to do everything they can to not pay.
Yeah.
The driver wonders on Thursday, like you said, when you're getting bombarded with calls, they want to know why they didn't get paid for a load. Well, you didn't turn page 2, or you had your thumb over the PO number, whatever it may be.
Yep.
Everybody is trying to find a reason not to pay you, the driver.
That's right.
And so don't give them any reason to, and have everything. And as long as you, the driver, maintain your professionalism, and as long as you do what you're supposed to do along the way, don't give them any reason not to pay you.
That's
And
right.
then if they don't, there's like there's that driverlegal.com that's like, or I think that's one. There's other avenues you can go through to protect your interests, and
Yep.
I don't think it ever really needs to go that far. But if it does, there's avenues that, and we can help you. If you message us, we can help you get to those avenues and help you out if you're not getting paid by your carrier. Though that definitely happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen,
Right.
but
Well, and two, just like what a lot of drivers don't understand is if you're not getting paid, let's say you just didn't get paid and there's nothing to do with the carrier or the broker, it's who you're leased on to. Most billing departments and settlements, they will contact the agent, broker, whoever, when the rate con is not in the load or the rate con does not match the load, the amount. They never respond to you and go, "Hey, you don't have a BOL in this load."
right.
And what happens a lot of times is the drivers get in a hurry. You should always put your name, your load number, your truck number, in and out times, pick up and delivery on every piece of paper you see. And your load number should be on a lumper fee. It should be on the BOL. It should be on a weight ticket. Anything.
And
And
hold on to that paperwork, right? I
that,
mean, how many times do I hear drivers, they'll get a chargeback, like they ended up not receiving something like 3 months later. Hold on to that paperwork, try and keep it, and you don't even have to hold on to the actual paperwork. Take a picture of it, put it in a file. We should do it one day where we can show on our phones. There's so many guys out there that don't know the capabilities of the phones that they have,
yep,
and there's a way for you to take a picture, and you can take that picture and put it into a file for that load number right on your phone. Then you can go onto your phone, open files, and you can pull that load right up, show the pictures, and you can share those documents to your carrier, or to the broker who's asking for it. It's all right there in the palm. You don't need to have stacks of paper
no,
anymore in your truck. There's a way to, if you want to get rid of it, take a picture of it. Take a picture of all the documents. And also, if you don't I see this so many times. If the Especially for open deck loads, they're
mm-hmm.
like, "Well, I didn't get a BOL. I didn't get any kind of You should have a piece of paper,
Mm-hmm.
and also your carrier can give you an electronic. Some carriers out there can give you an electronic document that it can be electronically signed,
Right.
and they can just sign it right on your phone. Do not leave that shipper or receiver without having somebody sign something that they received your product, because you're just giving them, like I said, another excuse not to pay for that load.
Yep.
I received every excuse under the sun from a driver. Like, I pulled up to this lot. It was some guy. He didn't even work for the company. He was a contractor. He didn't have any paperwork for me. I was like, well, I don't even care if you take your rate confirmation that I sent you print it out, have it with you before delivery, and make sure that somebody signs a piece of document that it was received, date and time,
Yep.
shipper load and count. Shipper load and
Gotta
count is
protect-
huge.
Yeah, you got to protect yourself.
Sign that paper SLC every time,
Yep.
because most of these companies will not let you on their docks. So make sure that you're protecting yourself, because they'll say, oh, well, I only received 38 of 40 pieces. If you sign that SLC, shipper load and count, you're protecting yourself. That's something that you can put in front of, like I said, an attorney if it goes to that point. Hopefully it doesn't.
That's
But
right.
do everything you can to not give them an excuse.
Yep. And I want to go back to something you said a minute ago that as a recruiter, I get asked this question all the time, and you brought up a good point. So, yes, drivers, you're the first one to get paid. As Jay said, you're getting paid before anybody. Yeah, we'll build the broke. I mean the carrier lease carrier. They will build out the load, but they're not going to get it for probably 30 days, maybe even 60 days. Well, I have guys all the time that complain. Why do I having to pay this escrow? Why do you have $1,000, $1,500 escrow? And this is a prime example of why carriers have to have at least some type of escrow. And you brought my point up for me. So you decide you're going to leave the company on this Friday. Friday's your last day. So you go do your last load. You pick up, you deliver, you go turn the trailer in. You're completely done with the lease carrier that you're with. Guess what? Next Friday, you get paid for that load. The company you left has not received a single penny for that load yet.
Right.
Sure enough, 2 or 3 weeks later, they sent their invoice in. Well, it's $300, $500 short for whatever various reasons. Well, let's say it's because the truck driver was late. Okay. Well, of course, the truck driver's not going to tell anybody, hey, I was late an hour at delivery. They're not going to tell it. If the agent's not paid attention, then they're not going to really know. So there's in and out times showing, hey, your driver was late based off the rate con. That's a $300, chargeback. So guess what? They take $300 off that invoice to your carrier. Well, the carrier shouldn't be left out in the dry for that $300. And so that is why that escrow is there, and it's for other things as well. But that's one of the major ones, because once you leave, you've been paid. There's no way they can come back after money after you except take you to court. Well, they don't want to take you to court no more than you would want to go to court, because all the people that went in court are lawyers. That's the ones that's going to make the money. So, for a four or
Right.
$5 hit, they don't want to go to court. And another thing about escrows, I know it's not something we've talking really about today, but one other thing I'd like to say about escrows is all you truck drivers out there and owner operators that always say you can't get your money back, we never get our escrows back. It's just like anything else I would talk about. All you have to do is figure out who you have to speak to at that agency corporation when you leave, and you call them every day. Worry the piss out of them. Call, 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 call. They will finally give you your money back, because they're going to get tired of you calling every day. And
Mm-hmm.
most times it's like a 45-day, wait period to make sure everything is cleared through their books, and then they'll give you money back. Now, I had one of my drivers years ago. He was owed $10,000 in back escrow. He had forgot about it. Of course, that it's because a lot of that stuff is triggered in the system, and if it doesn't get triggered automatically, no one's looking for it in the department, because they're not thinking about it. And of course, they don't want to have to give up money if they don't have to. But all you got to do, all I did was make a few phone calls. We figured up that, hey, he actually had more money, because he just had called me. It's like, man, I know I've got like 2 escrows. Can you see how much I'm supposed to get back? I'm like, all right. And he was still with me. He just had several trucks and got real trucks. He ended up getting $10,000 check, and it was just because we stayed on top of it and got it back. So the money can come back, but a lot of times that escrow is essential because of just things like that, because you, as the owner op and driver, you get paid way in advance. I mean, you're not having to deal with going after the money or and all that. That's what that fee you pay in every week is part of.
Yeah, and and also another way to get that back, if you are rightfully due that escrow, another thing that you can do is you can write a letter.
Hmm?
You can call, get it, even if the attorney doesn't give you their information, ask them if you can use their name. Ask your friends if they
Right.
know an attorney where you can, just use their name. Say you might use them down the road. Like I said, I think there's a
That's
driver legal company out there where you can call them and get advice. But if you write a letter and you CC an attorney on a letter, a professional letter. You don't need to go cuss at them. You don't need to be argumentative. Just a
that's a
letter
good idea.
stating that this is what you put into the account. This is what you're due. I've copied in an attorney for some legal advice, and
Hmm.
I'd like to see this rectified as quickly as possible. And I look forward to your response. Something of that nature.
That's
CCing an attorney can go a long way.
most definite. That's a good idea. I never thought about it that way. But that's a good idea because they don't want to go to court.
No, nobody wants
Because
to go to court. The chances
nope.
of the chances of you winning in court are slim. But even if you do win, more than likely, if you're going to have to hire, um, if you're going to have to hire
An
an
attorney, they're going.
attorney, the attorney's going to cost you $5,000 retainer fee just at the very beginning. And
Yep.
then by the time you get your money, so a lot of time, unless it's more than $5,000, a lot of times it's not even going to be worth your time. And I hate to say
Right.
that because every dollar counts, but when you're talking about legal situations, it gets expensive.
Most definite. Ain't nothing cheap about a courtroom.
Yeah. Speaking about getting money back, you hear Elon Musk talking about getting $5,000 back per household.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my $5,000. I'm gonna be like you in it. I'm gonna help the economy. I'm gonna make sure to spread the wealth out a little bit. I ain't no need to saving it.
Yeah, I'm
But
a little bit, I feel like of course, I would love the $5,000, and I would love it for everybody out there that definitely could use $5,000. And I think it highlights the amount of waste we have in our government, the amount of corruption we have. I mean,
yep,
their goal is to find $2 trillion in waste. If they find $1 trillion, they've. I listened to the interview with President Trump and Elon Musk the other night on Hannity, and I think it's great that they're working together. I'll just come right out and say it. I think it's great that Elon, is involved. He's not doing this for money. He's
nope,
doing this to help. He's got all the money in the world. He's the richest man in the world. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the headache. He does
don't
and even like Trump, he doesn't even need to be attacked. He doesn't need to be
right.
attacked. He doesn't need to take this abuse. So anybody who says he's doing this for the money is just crazy. He's already made his money. The guy can freaking go and create a rocket that comes right back down to where it lands. On top of that, he can create something that he's going over and above to create something that's going to help people. He said the other night it's like some neurotransmitter, and it's going to help people who are deaf, or I mean who are blind. It's going to help them see. It's going
Oh
to
wow,
help. Yeah, it's going to like be built into their brain. It's gonna people who can't talk, it's gonna like basically go into their, I don't know if it'll go into their brain or it goes around their head, but it'll basically be able to put out on a computer faster than what you and I can write on a computer. So
wow.
the guy is a super genius,
Yep,
and he does not need the money. He's doing this because he loves our country, and I truly believe that.
I
Trump
agree.
is not taking a salary. He's
Yep.
doing this because he loves our country. And it's time to get rid of all the corruption. I mean, when you're paying Iraq how many billions of dollars or millions of dollars, whatever it was, for Sesame Street,
Yeah,
or
even
you're paying some foreign country to help their DEI
yep.
initiatives,
I
that's
even
just there is no. I would even like to see, and I heard this on Rogan the other day talking. I forget who he was talking to, but should we consider if we could save all? Imagine we can save all this waste. Imagine like there is two, and I think like Trump said the other night, I think there's far beyond $2 trillion that we're wasting. I
I do
think
too.
it's insane. I think that may be a very small percentage of what the
Mhm.
corruption is in our government. So imagine we could create kind of like a living wage. Like if
Mhm.
you're born a citizen in this country or you come across this country illegally and you become a citizen, you're
Yep.
given a basic wage. And that basic wage pays for basic living expenses and food that you need. And it could be controlled to say, like, look, you can't go out and buy cigarettes, you can't go out and buy drugs, you can't use it on alcohol.
Right.
Um, but you can go out and buy the bare necessities. So it gets rid of our homelessness.
Yes.
It allows people to go out and afford a basic apartment. If they want to do over and above that, and you're going to have some people that just become automatically lazy. But there are those
Yep.
people anyway. Those
Right.
people are out there anyway.
Yep.
So you go and you get them off the streets. You get them to a point where they're no longer worried about, and it could be increased based on their family size, and they're no longer worried about the day to day stuff. And now you've got people who are capable, who are
Yeah.
able to
That,
go and take their dreams and make them a reality. So they're
yeah.
able to go, if they want to better themselves in their current situation, they can get out of the apartment they're in. Maybe they're in a 2-bedroom apartment that's being funded by the government where they can buy milk, eggs, and fabric softener, as he says on Home Alone. And you can buy your milk, eggs, and fabric softener. You can pay for your basic rent. You can your water, your electric, your Wi-Fi. It's
Yeah.
covered because you are a legal U.S. citizen, and
Yeah.
and then you can go out and go over and above that if you want to better your life.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's the way it might head. I really do. I've been thinking about that for a while because I think time we do these cuts and if we really start using our natural resources, we can be flourishing in financial money. But what people don't understand, and I was blessed because I figured this out actually in elementary school because I've always been a business minded person. That's just, I don't know, that's just my DNA makeup. The
Yeah,
United
same.
States is a business. It is not anything other than a business. And the problem that people don't understand is 99% of your politicians don't own a business, don't know anything about a business. They went to, all these big fancy schools. A
That's
lot of
why
them,
they're in politics. That's why Nancy Pelosi never got out of politics, is because that's all she knows how to do. They
right.
couldn't go out and find a job.
No. And I always said, I don't know how many of our listeners remember Ross Perot. I was a big Ross Perot guy because he was a very good businessman. And to me, that's the only way you can get out of debt is to know what's going on and how to run it and check your balances. And that's what these two gentlemen are doing. And a lot of people don't respect that, I guess, because they're not business people. But as even my little small business, I mean, I've been blessed and never had a boss. So I get it. If it's always been on me to make sure I'm, in the positive. And you got to make sacrifices to do that. You got to cut spending to do that. Most Americans can't do that. That's why they're in such credit card debt and things of that nature. But
Right.
to have businessmen who don't need it, don't need the time, don't need the headache, don't need the money, but want to better every American because they're saving America money, it should be well respected and a lot more received in what it is. Because I do think we could possibly get out of complete debt and have that program like you're talking about because that would fix a lot. I mean, a lot of people just talking about homeless. People don't understand. Okay, yeah, the homeless don't get a lot, okay, from the government per se, but they cost us millions and probably a couple $1 billion a year because there's still programs and different things that are done for them that people don't realize it, but there's money being spent on these people who have hit a large time, and a lot of them are military people, which I've yet to ever understand why somebody can go and fight for our rights, lose a limb, and then come home, and most of them are, mentally challenged because of the horror they seen, and then they're just allowed to sleep under a cardboard box. That infuriates me about as much as anything, and I'm
Yeah,
not.
and then they go
I've
put
never.
an illegal at the Beverly Hills
Yeah,
Hotel. They go put them up, give them a meal card, give them a credit card to spend, and everybody's okay with it. Everybody's okay
yeah.
with it, and it's
I
just
read it's asinine. I mean, it's ridiculous. I read a report a couple years ago, and it was a group in Utah that was doing this, and I don't know how it went or anything, but it made sense. They were building a tiny house community for their homeless. And they said, as a community, it was cheaper to build them and put them in homes than it was to pay for all the programs for the homeless. And so they built it.
what. Well, because you think about like those programs, they are abused.
Big.
It's like the IRS and the all the loopholes that are there for people to not pay taxes. If you have a good accountant and you run a successful business, you are, like even Trump has said, trying to pay as little tax as possible. And if you have a good accountant and you can afford a good accountant,
You can
you're
get
likely going to pay the least amount of tax possible. And so our system is built that way. However, if you did away with all the government waste, all the corruption, you did away with the IRS, and you had a federal tax based on what you spent,
you.
and
Yep.
you that tax is automatic. You don't have to worry about filing taxes.
The
That's
billionaires.
ridiculous.
Yeah. The
People
billionaires are.
would spend money, they'd have more money in their pocket, they'd spend more money, and the government would make more money. The state governments, if you're not in a state that has if you're in a state that has income tax, luckily you and I are not,
That's right.
but but if you're in a state that has income tax, they don't need it.
No.
They if that you could charge another percent and you're going to make more money. Just like Florida, they don't have a deficit. They don't have a
Mm,
deficit,
nope.
and we don't have any state income tax. So
Yep.
yeah, I wish they would cut the corruption. I
Well,
love that Trump is standing by his word and truly draining the swamp. And you just look at the Democrats are freaking out. They don't have an answer for any of this. They don't.
nope.
All they can do is complain and say that Trump is an asshole, and it's because
That's
they've
not it.
gotten fat. They've gotten all of their cash. They've gotten all their money. All these politicians have gotten all their money
That's
from
right.
the corruption. And they see it going away. And they're like, let's protest. Let's go to the streets and protest. It's a joke. What
Oh,
are you upset about? That the money you were getting to go to Sesame Street in Iraq now is not going to come back to your piggy bank? I mean,
yep.
I, it's a mess.
Well, it's just simple fact of talking about the homeless, and the programs. And this is a prime example that people don't talk about enough. I don't think that why the system is broke. So if you're a senator, House representative, whoever, and you come up to your program and go, "Hey, I want to do this program for the homeless. I need, $10 million for the program in my state or whatever." Well, instead of everybody, getting together and go, "Hey, that's a great program. Is there a way we might could do it nationally or whatever?" No, they don't care about none of that. They go, "Okay, yeah, you want 10 million? Well, I need $3 million for something in Budapest." Well, you got to give them that to be able to get something that good. So all these crazy little earmarks get put into a bill just to get it passed. And
Mm-hmm.
it would be different if you were a senator or a House representative and you were fighting for something in your district. If you're like, "Hey, that program might would work. can we allot 5 million for my district? No, they're worried about some booster or some lobbyist that says, hey, if you can get us some money over here, we can skim off the top, and so no one
That's right.
benefits
Yeah.
in their district.
How do you think Pelosi? How do you think Schumer? How do you think all these guys got rich off of their $250,000 salary? There's a few
Exactly.
of them in there that own successful businesses, but it's not many.
I mean,
It's not
now,
many, and and go on Google and see what their net worth is. It
well, have
is.
you? I don't know. Sorry to cut you off, but have you
No, go ahead.
seen? Know the name of the app, but there is an app now that you can track like Pelosi and a lot of the
I
bigger
did see that. I
politicians.
saw that.
You can track and buy stock like they do, because it's a miracle how they just up and make big great decisions. And I used to play in the stock market, and I mean, I had a good friend that was a broker, and we kind of knew when to buy and sell something. I didn't ever make no money. I still lost because it just
Hmm.
never works out right. But when you're getting it from the, the main source, you can do pretty good. And I don't blame them, in the fact that you want to make more than your small salary. I mean, I get that because I'm never satisfied with what I make, but I mean, don't do it to where it puts your people that you're been elected and working for into a disadvantage, and that's what 99% of them up there do. And
Well, and that's why they're career politicians. That's why they don't go
they
out and start new businesses, because they know that they can get that if they stay in long enough, they're gonna work the system to their benefit, and they're gonna get rich off of it. And
exactly.
it's
Well,
just go ahead.
and and you can be and I know a few senators. I know our senator here in Tennessee. I've known him. He used to actually be my insurance agent back in the day. Uh, they can all be good people, but it's like when you get up to DC. And my senator's not. He's still a good guy, but I mean, you can have the best guy in the world. They stay up there too long, and it's not that
Well,
they ever want to become bad. They just
yeah.
that one decision that basically they could use over top of them, or they have, it just wears you down. I think even the good people, because it's the only way you can get anything done. And I hope
Yeah.
that Trump, before he leaves in 4 years, will make a difference. That's why I'm okay if we don't get the $5,000. I would rather him first get the debt gone. I think that
Hmm.
would help the longevity
Yeah, and then come up with
here.
a program, then come up with a system that, that takes care of the American people. Like I said, I think, even, our even if you have a basic welfare system for everybody to where nobody in the United States has to worry about food, has to worry about shelter, has to worry about, and I'm okay with even, with medical expenses, doesn't have to worry about medical expenses, figure out a way to do that. If you cut out all the corruption, you could probably help other countries that are in need, help disaster relief, fund Social Security, and and give everybody what they need to survive, and you probably still be far better off than where we are today, and you wouldn't be in debt.
That's right. Sorry, I'm trying to change up my phone about to die. But yeah, I think we should stop helping everybody right now. We should be
I,
America first, fix our
I
problems,
mean, did you see the laundry list? Have you seen the laundry list of items that we're funding? Oh, and it's not even in America. It is all international. So it's not American programs. It's all international programs where we're sending over billions and billions of dollars to help these countries with bullshit, with
yeah,
total bullshit. It's not like we're helping them like rebuild their country from a disaster or from a war. It is total BS. We're funding their DEI programs. We're putting Sesame Street on. I mean, the list goes down. It is incredible. I'll share it on our next show. It is. I couldn't believe it, and it just the billions and billions of dollars that we're giving to other countries. and we have people that are sleeping on the streets like homeless vets, where it would take next to nothing to put them in a small house or
Yeah,
put them in a shelter and give them food and the necessities to survive. Um,
yeah, 'cause,
that's where the money needs to go.
yeah, and I think too, a lot of these programs, like even for the veterans, I think a lot of people that would get the assistance that's needed in the homeless, and any other, issue, I think they would. A lot of people would volunteer and do, and it would make it a stipulation where you got to do so much. If you're not going to work, do some volunteer doing something. If it's cleaning
Yep.
this, mile roads you clean, or if you're uh, donating time to animal shelter, or just anything to feel like that they're getting something back for what they're giving. I think a lot of people, you're still gonna have the lazy people, like you said. I mean, that's
Of
unfortunately
course
just
you
our.
are. There's some people that are on the street right now that are extremely capable and
Yeah.
they just don't have the bare necessities to survive.
Well, you
And
can't
if
get a job
they,
address,
yeah,
so
yeah,
how do you get a, you know?
right.
But
So anyway, well, we're coming up on the U.S. Canada game. I'm excited for it. Um, we got.
uh,
I think we had a great discussion here. I'd like to continue it. Um, but go United States and have a good night, Justin. All right.
all right, you too. Have a good night, everybody. Be safe travels on the road. Watch out for the crazy weather that we got, and like I said, go USA.
Sounds good. All right, buddy.
All
Have
right.
a good night.
All right.